You know how there are words we say every single day, but we don't always stop to think about what they really mean? Well, for millions of people, a certain prayer is a huge part of their daily life. Today, we're going to use a text called the Sixth Ray to really dive deep and unpack the hidden layers of that prayer.
So get this, these words, they aren't just some poetic phrases. The source we're looking at says they come from a moment that's, well, out of this world. Literally. They're from a direct conversation between the Prophet Muhammad and God during his Ascension, a dialogue that happened beyond our physical reality.
And that leads us to the big question, right? Why would a conversation from this one incredible sacred night become something that millions of people repeat day in and day out? What's the secret behind that repetition?
Okay, so here's our game plan for figuring that out. We're going to look at how this prayer becomes a personal journey. We'll decode the universe packed into just 4 words, see its power to totally change your perception, and finally, we'll get into a really fascinating paradox that's right at the heart of it all.
The idea here is pretty amazing. The 5 daily prayers are meant to be a kind of personal ascension for every single believer. So each time they say these words, they're not just reciting something from memory. They're intentionally tapping into that original sacred conversation. And in a way, they're actually participating in it themselves.
And when that happens, when you make that connection, something profound takes place. The meaning it explodes. It stops being about one particular moment in history and becomes totally universal, expanding its light and its value for every single person who says them.
All right, let's dive into the first part of the prayer to see how this works. We're going to break down 4 key words. And what's really cool is that each one is like this incredible offering that represents the worship of, well, the entire universe.
First up is salutations. Now, this is so much more than just saying hello. It's understood as an offering of all the praise and glory that every living thing gives out just by being alive. It's as if the prophet is presenting this huge gift and saying, here is the worship that's embedded in the very fabric of life itself. Next, we have blessings. This one gathers up the worship you find in the sources of life and abundance. Think about seeds, grains, eggs, all those tiny, miraculous starting points that just burst with potential and make you go, wow. This word offers up that natural praise.
Then comes Benedictions. Here the focus gets a little sharper. This is about the specific, conscious worship performed by all beings that have spirits. So we're kind of moving up the ladder from life in general to conscious, spirited life.
And finally, we have good things. This is the top tier. It represents the most elevated, most brilliant form of worship, the kind that comes from perfected human beings and the highest spiritual beings like angels. So just think about that. In 4 short words, the worship of the entire universe has just been presented. It's pretty incredible.
Okay, that's the theory. But what does understanding all of this actually do for a person? Well, the author of our source text shares this really powerful personal story from a dark time in his life that illustrates this perfectly.
This slide really captures the shift. On the left, you see how he first saw the universe, as a lifeless, dead, even horrifying place. But after he truly grasped the meaning of just that one word, salutations, his entire reality shifted. The universe suddenly came alive for him, becoming this vibrant, luminous mirror of the divine. That's the power we're talking about here.
Now let's switch gears to the second half of the prayer because this is where we find a really fascinating intellectual puzzle. It's something people have debated for centuries, a comparison that, on the surface, just doesn't seem to make sense.
So here's the paradox. The prayer asks God to bless Prophet Muhammad and his family as he blessed Prophet Abraham and his family. But if the tradition holds that Muhammad has a higher station, why would you make that comparison? Why ask for a blessing modeled on someone of a supposedly lesser rank? It almost sounds like you'd be asking for a downgrade, right?
Well, the answer, according to our source, is just beautifully complex. It unfolds in 3 different layers. And it turns out, this isn't really about comparing 2 individuals at all. It's about something much, much bigger: community, continuity, and even the cosmos itself.
So, the first layer has to do with their families. As you can see here, Abraham's family line was full of prophets: Ishmael, Isaac, and many others. Muhammad's family line, on the other hand, was known for producing great saints. So the prayer is asking for a similar abundance of holy people in Muhammad's lineage of saints as was granted to Abraham's lineage of prophets.
The second layer is all about connection. Reciting this prayer reminds believers that they are part of this huge, unbroken caravan of faith. It connects them to the exact same path walked by Adam, Noah, Abraham, and all the prophets. It gives you this incredible sense of strength and helps protect you from doubt.
And that brings us to the final, most expansive part of the answer. This is where we see that this supplication isn't just asking for a personal blessing for one man. No, this is a prayer on a truly cosmic scale.
The blessing being asked for here, the station of praise and glory, is like the single fruit at the top of a giant tree. But here's the key. You can't have the fruit without the entire tree. So by asking for that one result, you are indirectly asking for the whole tree of creation to reach its ultimate goal. You're participating in a universal prayer for the coming of the eternal realm. Your small personal prayer gets connected to the biggest purpose of the entire universe.
So where does all this leave us? I mean, think about the journey we just took. We went from a single conversation to the collective worship of the cosmos, from a historical puzzle to a prayer for the fulfillment of all creation. It really makes you stop and wonder, doesn't it? Could a few simple, repeated words truly contain the entire story of creation, community, and our ultimate place within it all?